Ivan Nagy, Professor of Politics and International Studies at the International Christian University, live from Tokyo. Well, thanks, Prof, for joining us today. Now, before we get into the politics behind it, first up, how do you interpret this escalating diplomatic row between China and Japan? And there are even calls now growing even louder in Tokyo to expel the Chinese envoy.
Well, the escalating or de-escalating relationship between the two countries was expected. In Beijing, Prime Minister Takaichi Sanae is seen as a China hawk, someone that's against China, that's someone that would take a harder line against China. So we have expected a very fierce diplomatic push from the Chinese. However, the Consul General of China that's based in Osaka really said things that go outside the normal diplomatic jargon. He called for, having the head of the Prime Minister of Japan. I think this is seen as unacceptable in the diplomatic community, and frankly, it's seen as a threat to the Prime Minister. And I'm surprised that he's actually not been expelled yet. And I think this is mostly related to his diplomatic status rather than the wishes of Japan and the people of Japan.
Yeah, I mean, to quote, he said that the dirty head that sticks itself in must be cut off. Clearly a pretty visceral threat there. But then it was deleted soon after, though. I mean, how do you read into that?
Well, obviously, the Chinese government understood that this was unacceptable, but they always play this, sweet and sour approach to diplomacy. They use carrots and then they use hammers. And we've seen this not just in Japan. We should remember that the former Chinese ambassador to Canada called Canadians a multicultural society, a racist white supremacist society, and then they're advocating for trade and opening up the relationship. So this is nothing new. It's part of the Wolf Warrior playbook. I think what we've seen, though, is a dramatic pushback on the Japanese side, but also allies and friends of Japan who see this kind of commentary as completely unacceptable by any diplomat, whether they're Chinese or otherwise.
Right. And if we trace back, take a step back to how it all started, we've got Prime Minister Takaichi naming Taiwan outright. I mean, do you see this as a deliberate shift away from this strategic ambiguity, which, Japan has actually carefully maintained for decades?
So what we've seen is that she made a comment about if there was some kind of military action on Taiwan, that it would be a security challenge for Japan, and said that they would have to respond accordingly. This is really a shift. I think maybe the shift is in line with her mentor, the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who also said that a Taiwan security issue would be a Japanese security issue. We should be realistic that the sea lines of communication that are in and around Taiwan ferry about 2.3 trillion US dollars of goods. They're critical import-export laneways for Japan, not to mention energy. Second, I think really important, we need to think about Taiwan's place in the technological supply chains. It is the key supplier of semiconductors, and Japan is a highly sophisticated economy. Of course, if there was a military incursion in and around Taiwan, this would affect Japan's security. And lastly, I think, Taiwan's position within the first island chain really is seen as a critical part of Japan's security and the broader stability of the Indo-Pacific region. And if there was some kind of military incursion over Taiwan, that this would fundamentally destabilize the region and likely result in a regional, if not world war.
So, all of this, comes sort of very early in her tenure, barely a month into office. Do you think she's speaking mostly to voters, foreign powers, or to both?
Both. I think she came into office being elected as the first female prime minister. She's seen as having conservative credentials, and I think those people that supported her ascension to the prime ministership really wanted to take a contrasting stance compared to the former Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru, who was seen as soft on China and fundamentally mismanaged not only the Chinese-Japan relationship, but the U.S.-Japan relationship. So she's trying to strike a stark contrast with the Ishiba administration. At the same time, I think she's speaking to China, saying that we support the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. We support peaceful reunification that is done through consultation on both sides of the strait. And of course, it's unacceptable from not only Japan's standpoint, but many people's standpoint that any kind of reunification would take place by force. So that's the message to Beijing. And last, I think there's a lot more clarity to the ordinary Japanese citizen that it's important that Japan stands up for a regional friend with the right kind of language. And I think it wouldn't matter what she said. I think Beijing would have taken a similar approach. And I think it's not a step away from ambiguity. I think what she's done is have more continuity in the approach about speaking about Taiwan from the standpoint of how its security is connected to Japan's security and the broader region.
So if, Prof, we look at the big picture, how do you think this could reshape, bilateral dynamics? Is there something, is this, do you see something with real diplomatic fallout from this incident?
Well, in the short term, we have to watch and see. I mean, the Chinese could take a much harder line and start to penalize Japanese firms in the mainland. They've done this in the past to Japanese firms with inspections and creating ambiguity about the visa status and exit status of executives. But they've also done this with South Korea, Australia, and Canadians. So, the sky's the limit in terms of what Beijing may do. I think that they certainly want to have Takaichi take a softer stance, and if possible, find ways to remove her through changing the electoral dynamics within Japan. And again, the first and easiest place to do that is to penalize Japanese businesses that are doing business in China, and that has, of course, a cascade effect of the internal politics within the LDP.
Always a pleasure getting your insights. Thanks so much for helping us unpack the standoff between Japan and China. Stephen Nagy there from International Christian University in Tokyo.